Hello, this is Tony Heller from RealClimateScience.com, setting the record straight about climate. This video discusses the claim that extreme weather is getting worse. In 2014, the Obama White House published a national climate assessment claiming that extreme weather is getting worse in the U.S. They said forest fires, heat waves, and drought are increasing due to global warming. Are these claims accurate? Well, according to the U.S. Forest Service, forest fires are down 80% since the 1930s. That claim from the White House was patently false. And according to the EPA, heat waves are down 80% since the 1930s. That claim from the White House was also patently false. According to NOAA, the U.S. is getting wetter, with the last 2 years being the wettest on record. The claim of increasing drought from the Obama White House was also patently false. What about other weather disasters? Are they getting worse? Do they correlate with man-made CO2 emissions? Well, let's have a look at that. The deadliest Atlantic hurricane occurred in 1780. 27,000 people were killed. And 3 of the 10 deadliest Atlantic hurricanes occurred between 1775 and 1780. CO2 emissions were close to zero at the time. In 2012, Hurricane Sandy came in at high tide the week before the election and got Obama reelected. Obama was able to paint his opponent as a climate denier. But New York's largest hurricane occurred in 1821. It came in at low tide, but it would have destroyed most of the city had it come in at high tide like Sandy did. In 1871, on the same day that Chicago burned to the ground, dozens of forest fires burned around Lake Michigan and Lake Ontario. These killed thousands of people in Wisconsin and Michigan. Peshtigo, Wisconsin was completely destroyed. These were the deadliest forest fires in U.S. history. In 1886, the U.S. was hit by 7 hurricanes, including 2 major hurricanes. That's more hurricanes than hit during Obama's entire 8 years. And the U.S. hasn't been hit by a major hurricane in almost 12 years, a major hurricane being defined as having wind speeds over 110 miles per hour. 1886 was the most active U.S. hurricane season. In 1900, Galveston, Texas was hit by a hurricane that killed 10,000 people. Most of the city was destroyed. That was the deadliest hurricane in U.S. history. According to NOAA daily temperature data, July 1901 was the hottest month in U.S. history. During July 1913, California reached 134 degrees. That was the hottest temperature ever recorded on Earth. In 1925, the deadliest US tornado occurred. It wiped out dozens of towns in Missouri, Illinois, and Indiana, and it killed more than 1,000 people. The largest U.S. flood occurred on the Mississippi River in 1927. It flooded 27,000 square miles for more than 6 months and forced hundreds of thousands of descendants of homesteaders from the Reconstruction to flee to northern cities. Vermont was also hit by their largest flood in 1927. In 1931, more than 3 million people in China were killed by a flood. This was the deadliest flood on record. The most intense U.S. hurricane on record occurred in 1935. It actually blew trains off the track in Florida. And the hottest U.S. summer occurred in 1936. About half of U.S. states set their all-time temperature record that summer. At the worst of the heat wave, one person was dying every minute from the heat. Note that all of these record disasters occurred when CO2 emissions were very low. There is no correlation between CO2 emissions and extreme weather. None at all. People always imagine that the climate is changing. This article from 1871 is one of my favorites. It was originally published in the Pall Mall Gazette titled Imaginary Changes of Climate on January 10, 1871. A plentiful crop of speculation from weather prophets and projectors and half-instructed meteorologists, and all the philosophic tribe of Laputa in general, to whom the periodical press now affords such fatal facilities. Every season is sure to be extraordinary. Almost every month one of the driest or wettest or windiest, coldest or hottest ever known. Much observation, which ought to correct a tendency to exaggerate, seems in some minds to have rather a tendency to increase it. This is exactly the same story as we hear now. The Obama White House claims of increasing forest fires, drought, heat waves were patently false. There is zero evidence that the climate is getting more extreme or that extreme weather events are increasing. Most of the evidence shows the exact opposite, and there's no correlation with atmospheric CO2. Visit Toto on the web at realclimatescience.com. He's been pulling back the curtain on junk science for a long time.